Hello, everyone. My name is Allison Field, and I want to welcome you to our YouTube channel, Create Your Blank, where we share stories of fascinating people who have actually created their blank. Today, we have Ashlie Woods with us in the studio, and I'm so excited to have her on with us today to share her story. Welcome, Ashlie.
Thank you.
So
Good to be
glad you're
here.
here. So please share with us a little bit about what you currently do out in the world.
Ooh, okay. Well, I'm a retreat leader at heart. If anybody were to ask me what I do, I would say I have the privilege and the joy of leading transformational retreats. Um, yeah. So I do that. And I also facilitate online coaching programs and, a variation of other circles and live events.
Yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
great. Okay, great. Now let's go back in your story and tell us a little bit about how you started with the idea of being a retreat leader. How did that come about?
Well, it actually came to me like a vision. I know you're familiar with the artist way. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Love it.
Okay. So, right. So very, very influential body of work for me back at the time. This must have been 13 years ago or so.
Mhm.
I was traveling throughout Southeast Asia, and which had also been a big dream of mine to be doing. So I was traveling extensively and living this question about what I was going to do when my travels were over and I was ready to kind of enter that next phase of, career and life. What was that going to look like? And I felt really committed that I do something that felt like a self-expression. I wanted a
Mhm.
way to sustain my life through something that also fed my soul. So I was kind of living this question, like, what am I going to do? And I started working through the artist way as part of that process to help support me. And there was somewhere in there that the literal inquiry or question was kind of one of those general, if money wasn't an issue or time wasn't an issue, what would you do? And I specifically remember this little kind of street in Bangkok. I was walking down and, I can practically smell it, feel it as I recall it.
Mm.
And it landed for me as I know you would appreciate like a download, but I didn't really use that language then. I don't know if I would have said it that way, but it was like a download and it was very visceral and I could see it. There was a group of women standing around a long banquet table. There were like these twinkle light, kind of magical energy surrounding it. Everybody was glowing, like
Mm.
really, the way that women are beautiful when they know who they are and that they're inherently worthy, like that's the way everybody looked. And I just knew that I had some role in facilitating whatever had happened there. And it felt like the answer. Like if I could do anything, I would facilitate transformational experiences in really beautiful places around the world. Like that would be the dream.
Mhm.
So that's how it came to me.
Wow. Wow. And then you traveled, and then when you came back, and how did that land itself as real in your world?
Yeah, great question, because it wasn't like a clear download vision and then all of a sudden it was happening, right? I think
Mhm.
from that moment to the time I actually led my first retreat was 3 years,
Mhm.
actually. So at the time, I think I was waiting for somebody to give me permission. Like,
Interesting. Yeah.
who's gonna okay the first place I started to look was like, okay, well, what credentials do I need? It was
Mhm.
kind of one of
Yeah.
my first questions. And I had been participating, training, and facilitating transformation to some degree for 6 or 7 years at this point.
Mhm.
But to lead a retreat in a group and to take them somewhere, I felt like surely there was something else that I needed that I might not have. And
Mhm.
how can I go about finding that? So
Mhm.
I started connecting with people and I took a few steps in that way. But kind of one of the pivot, and here, let me say this, Allison, before I go to this next part. I just was following the breadcrumbs at that time. I don't know
Mhm.
another way to say it. It was
Yeah,
like,
yeah. It's not
I don't,
linear.
yeah, I don't exactly know how to get there. I know I want to do this thing, but I don't know how to do that thing yet. So I
Mhm.
just kind of kept following the next thing that would light up in front of me.
Mhm.
And one of those things that lit up in front of me, there was a woman who I had connected with um, on social media, heard about her through somebody else and started following her story.
Mhm.
Maybe you can relate or your listeners can relate to somebody that just kind of pings on your radar as interesting and your ears perk up.
Mhm.
And this woman was like that for me. And one day she was sharing about having followed her intuition on a trip to Bali. I had been to Bali, I'd fallen in love with the country there in Indonesia. It's just a magical place. So I was really tuned into her story. And one day she shared that she was taking the leap to do this thing that she'd been called to do. And
Mm.
she was scheduling her first retreat. And I could relate. Like I had that
Yeah.
calling too, and she was
Mhm.
doing it.
Mhm.
So when I saw her doing it, something inside me was like, I have to be there.
Mhm.
And I went to her retreat. And when I
Yeah.
went to her retreat, it just affirmed, confirmed everything that I thought about my desire to do that and lit the fire. And she mentored me a bit in those early years and helped answer some questions. And yeah, it was like the step I needed. So I scheduled my first retreat and haven't looked back.
And that was it. So that is amazing. So you got this download. You traveled, finished your travels, and then came home. And then, it was about 3 years. And, you know, what's so beautiful about that is that you followed your heart, right? You followed the breadcrumbs.
Being on that trip to begin with was following my heart.
Yeah.
Like I just want to point that out because the download came to me or the answer came to me when I had already taken a pretty bold leap
Yeah.
to leave behind a particular established secure life to be traveling the way that I was, a year plus in different countries and,
Backpacking,
spending,
really.
yeah, and like,
Right.
spending my savings and like just going for it, right? So I was already in that energy. And I feel like that's kind of important to note because I had already made this internal declaration to follow what felt true for me. And then
Mhm.
things just kept showing up that
Mhm.
were aligned with that again, just kind of kept lighting the path forward. Yeah.
Beautiful. Beautiful. So I love that. And I remember us having a conversation way back in the
Mm,
day. And I said, well, what does it mean to follow your heart? Because
mm.
how do you know that you're following your heart? And your answer was and is, how do you know when it's your heart versus your head?
Do you remember what I said? I'm just curious.
Yeah, no, no, I'm terrible at
That's
specifics,
okay.
but I remember you said you have to feel into it,
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, first of all, I just want to say I feel like that's been the core, the heart of the work that I've offered over these years is really helping people discern between their head and their heart, which is a very generalized way it's a very simplified way of saying between fear and love or between our
Mhm.
conditioning and our highest calling,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah, yeah.
And it's the $1,000,000 question. I mean, I think we're all living it is how do I know if this decision is being fueled by some need for safety or some attempt to control, or if it's truly coming from this really pure, inspired place? And I mean, I think it shows up a little bit differently for all of us. I've come to appreciate over the years that it shows up a little bit differently for all of us. The primary way I began practicing it was really through my body, was
Mm.
learning to feel. I had a dear mentor many years ago give me this beautiful piece of advice. And she said, notice what it feels like in your body when you tell the truth.
Mm.
Not like, some capital T truth, but like your truth.
Yeah, yeah. And I remember saying to you,
Hmm.
I don't feel it in my body like you do.
Hmm. Yeah.
I feel it in my heart. And well, my heart is my body, I guess. But
Yeah.
it's almost like a dagger in my heart. not like a dagger. That's such a harsh word, but something softer, like, but it's straight through my heart.
But like a piercing in the heart.
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay. And I might speak of that sensationally, but you may have another way that it registers for you. And I mean, I think that's really important. I really did kind of initially in my work, it was like the way I had discovered my inner knowing, I tried to
mhm,
give that to other people. And to some degree, it works because people can
yes.
learn and practice to tune into their body, and they will discover something, right? There's a
Mhm.
consistency to how it feels. My feet feel grounded, my chest feels open, I feel tall but without being effortful, or things feel lighter,
Yeah,
less dense. There's a familiarity and a predictability to when something feels really true or aligned for me physically. But it could show up like an emotion or like a clear knowing, like
yeah,
just a know that you know.
yeah, yeah,
It could feel like that too. Yeah.
yeah,
But
yeah.
there's one, and I think this is such a subtlety. And those of us who are really committed to living a heart led life have to sort this out for ourselves. But there's a subtlety when something is true and heart led, there's a quietness about it or a
Mm.
stillness about it. And when it's coming from any other kind of egoic place or fearful place, or there's almost like we let ourselves off the hook, like a smidge of regret or something.
Interesting. Interesting
Hmm.
distinction,
You have to pay really close attention.
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, and I think you said it earlier. It's really the difference between fear and love,
Hmm.
right? Because if you're in love, then it's flow and easy and that quietness about it, right? If it's in fear, then we get in our head and think, oh, I shouldn't do that. I shouldn't go off and do retreats, or I shouldn't do what I want to do, what I'm creating, because, right? And we get into our
Yes.
logical mind.
That's actually another great distinction. I love Corey Muscara. I don't know if you follow him on Instagram, but he's a beautiful teacher of mindfulness and meditation. And one of the things he'll say is when something's out of alignment, it requires a lot of story to kind of bolster it
Yes.
up.
Yes. I love that. A lot of
Yeah.
story. And
Yes.
we just make it up as we go.
So if we find ourselves using a lot of rationalization or a lot of story to buoy our decision, then it's likely not an aligned heart led decision.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really good to know as people are learning to tune on in. Those that are watching, learn to tune into their selves, their higher
Mm-hmm.
selves. And it's a practice, right? It's a practice of that.
It's a devotion.
I love that. It's a devotion. So,
Yeah.
could you share a little bit with us about how you or what you recommend is the best way to start a practice of tuning
Mm.
in and to your highest self?
Yeah. Well, I think the first thing is cultivating within yourself the commitment for it. There has to be a desire for that,
Mhm.
right? So
Right.
at some level you got to be tired of your own
Yeah.
noise. You're tired of your own bullshit, or you're kind of seeing the ways that not doing that
Yeah.
are costing you. And so
There.
there's a desire, or you can see perhaps people that seem to be living that way and what that allows for them. And there's a part of you that's inspired or wanting that. So I think just first of all, acknowledging that there is a desire for that that's present is a
Mhm.
good place to start.
Yeah.
And then start small. Like, don't, we want to try to use our heart, get out of our head and use our heart when we have these like pivotal big things happening in our life. And it's like when there's a lot at stake, it's even harder to feel clear. So
Mhm.
start where the stakes are low and
Mhm.
and be willing to discover how it shows up for you. Cuz like I said, there was a felt
Yeah.
sense in my body,
Yeah.
but you have it differently. So
Yeah.
ask yourself what you want to wear today.
Oh, that's good. Yeah. Yeah. And then listen. and go to your closet, and what are you led to? What are you guided to, right?
Exactly. Put it
And
on. Be
yeah.
willing to take it off. Put on
Mhm.
something else. I mean, that's actually a really good way because it's not like there's a right thing in your closet to wear. You literally can't screw it up, right? You're just going to
Right.
end up wearing something. So it's a really brilliant place to start because you put it on and it's like it either feels congruent that day with whatever
Mhm.
you're feeling or however you're
Mhm.
wanting to show up,
Mhm.
or it doesn't.
Mhm.
And the
Mhm.
stakes are low. Take it off, try again, and then notice what it feels like when something kind of clicks.
That's a lovely example of how to
Mhm.
get started and enrolling that. And it's also, you said at the beginning, you don't need to know the how. You didn't know the how when you
Mm-mm.
decided to do what you were doing and had the vision. You didn't even know
Mhm.
what it would look like.
Right.
And when we're tuned into our heart, we don't worry. We're always told, don't worry about the how, it will be revealed. And it
Mhm.
was with the person who landed in your life and you were able to connect with, and then
Yeah.
she was so aligned with what you were creating, right?
Yeah.
So the
Yeah.
right people, the right places and things will land in your space, in your airspace,
Yeah.
and allow it to move you.
Yeah. I think we hear that and we know don't worry about the how, which is easier said than done. But if we think about it from a perspective that, our heart just wants to expand. The heart or our highest expression is truly just expansive and limitless. And it's going to call us forward into things that our mind couldn't even know to want
Mhm.
or imagine for us.
Mhm.
And so you have to remember that if you can easily see the how, it's probably limited. Like your heart's going to call you towards something that you have no fucking idea how to do.
Right,
By its
right.
very nature, that's how it
Yeah,
expresses.
yeah,
So you're
yeah.
not supposed to know the how was actually relieving for me.
I like that. You're not supposed to know the how.
Not right away.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Well, then your logical brain is trying to figure it all out, which I'm
Right.
really good at, by the way, when I'm not
Hmm.
tuned in, trying to figure it all out.
Yeah.
So,
Cool.
so what is your big dream goal? If you were to nail something and say, what is your big
Gosh.
audacious goal for what you do? What would that be?
Gosh, in like full transparency, I don't know that I have one right now.
Good. That goes to what we just said, right?
I in this phase of my life and my business, I feel like I'm being asked to slow it down and really take one faithful, devoted step at a time.
Mm.
There's been times in my life, like when I had the vision of retreats, it was like I could see a vision that was several years out and much bigger than I knew how to be. And so my life was guided for that season by that vision, which was really beautiful. And then some circumstances in my life shifted, and, there's been a lot of growth and different experiments and expressions in between. And right now, this season of life and business, I feel like, um, sources just saying, like, okay, here's the next thing. Now wait. Okay, here's the next thing. Now wait.
Yeah.
And so I'm doing that.
Yeah. How hard is that?
Not easy. I mean, not my strong suit to just be like,
I know it's my little human self says,
yeah.
right?
Well, I think it's it's like it can be exciting to
Yeah.
have this big vision or whatever. But I don't know, again, maybe it's just my personal learning and what my soul is needing to really build capacity for is it's not as horizontal as it is vertical
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
this moment.
Yeah. Yeah. That feels yummy. That
Mm,
feels easeful.
mm,
And then it's the space of just allowing whatever shows up, and
mhm.
leaning into that and trusting, right? There's a big level of trust in that, inherent in that, right? In that path,
Yeah.
in your path.
I know the things that feel good right now and I'm
Yeah.
doing them
Good.
that feel true, and that feel like they want me. I'm doing those things. And I'm
Yeah.
open
Yeah.
to receiving a download or something else that,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
we'll see.
And that's also a great indicator of alignment, right? Does it feel good or does it not? Right?
Yeah. I pause at the word good, but
Mm.
yes, because yeah, I don't know. I tend to lean more towards this word true, but again, I guess that's somewhat subjective. You have to sort. There is a way that alignment feels good. Yes.
Yeah, I see the word. See the issue with the word, and that what word would you? Because what word did you just say? You said
True.
truth. How does it feel in your body when it's truth?
Yeah, but just because I think that there are times when we're asked to move in a direction, our however you want to call that, spirit,
Mhm.
source, the universe, your highest self, your soul.
Yeah.
Like to say your soul is calling you in a direction that actually feels quite uncomfortable. And so there's a way for me that it's like it can feel uncomfortable, but as long as it feels true, something about that feels good.
Yeah.
It's more like peace.
Yeah. Nice. Nice.
Mhm.
Okay.
Mhm.
Cool. I love that. I love how that's evolved for you over the years,
Mm.
you know,
Yeah.
and how it shows up.
Me and my intuition have a evolving relationship. It's true. Yeah. We're getting to know each other, we just get it's like, yeah, we're quite a few years in now. So I know a few subtleties about it that I didn't know in the beginning.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. Okay, great. So, is there anything you would like to wrap up with and share with anybody who is in the middle of creating their blank? What wisdom
Mm.
would you want to offer them?
Oh, yeah. Let it have its way with you. Like if something, I come from a fundamental belief that there is a life that wants to be lived through you. That
Hmm.
there's a light you're meant to shine and gifts you're meant to give. And it's your greatest purpose in life to be the youest you that you can be and to be contributing the gifts that are unique to you. And when that starts knocking at your door, it's not going to let you go. And you can avoid it for a while.
Yeah.
You can, do whatever you do to put it off. You can go get busy researching or preparing or whatever your thing is. But at some point, you're going to have to dance with it. It's not going to let you go. Or you're going to pay the cost, and it's a high price to pay.
Mhm.
So, it's worth it to go in and to like let it have its way with you and let it show you how it wants to move through you and what it wants to become, and like give yourself over to it, because it really makes for such a alive, delicious, satisfying experience of life.
Oh my gosh, I love that. I'm so moved by that. It's
Yeah.
beautiful. It's
Yeah. I
beautiful.
believe it with my whole heart.
I feel that. Well, Ashlie, thank you so much. That's for joining me today. It was wonderful having you on the show and learning all about your journey. And we've known each other for many years,
Many years.
and it's always delightful to be in your presence and participate in your retreats, which I've done. And so, thank
Yeah.
you for being on today. If people want to reach out to you, how do they connect with you?
Yeah. AshlieWoods.com, the easiest.
Okay. How do you spell Ashlie? I think it's on.
Yep. Ashlie. Yeah. Not a traditional way. So take note of that. ASHLIE Woods.com. Yeah. All
And
my
we'll put
info is there.
great. And we will put it in the notes. So that is a wrap for today. If you enjoyed this segment, please feel free to add any comments that you might have, and we'd love to hear from you. And if you'd like to receive notifications of future episodes, please hit that subscribe button. Thank you so much for tuning in. Have a beautiful day.
Thank you.